Welcome, folks. Good Vach, good Mayed. We continue with the Maimer Hasidic discourse. The verse says, like the days that when you go out of Egypt, I will show you wonders. The days is plural, which seems to contradict the fact that we went out on one day. What do you mean, the days? And as the one of the 6 daily remembrances that we need to remember every day. One of the things we need to remember every day is going out of Egypt. The day that he went out of the land of Egypt. So what the Rebbe explained based on the previous Rebbe's discourse is there's a day that began a process. You have to remember that day that begins a process, but know that we're part of a process that began going out of Egypt. It continues every day, and that process is going out of our limitations. As the word Egypt in Hebrew, Mitzrayim, comes to the word Meitzar, the straits, the limitations, the boundaries. That's what the word means. That's what Egypt means. Mitzrayim. And we have to go out of that every single day in a process that will lead to the final redemption. And in that, God will show great wonders. Greater wonders in the future than even in the past of going out of the original time out of Egypt, which are great wonders, 10 plagues, splitting of the sea, and so on and so forth. So the process begins going out of Egypt, of the refinement of ourselves, refinement of the world, and it becomes a greater process, a more accomplished process as we go along. Now, Egypt was an exile, and we are now also in exile, meaning not in the times of the Holy Temple where the presence of God is revealed, but this exile is going out of it is even greater than the original one through the greater refinement that we have of the world, and therefore we become closer to the final redemption. And we do that on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis. That will lead us out from the greater limitations as the exile continues. Now, this world is defined, the word world means limited by time and space. The word world in Hebrew, olam, comes also from the word helam, which means concealment. This world is a concealment on the divine presence. So time and space brings a limitation to and a concealment of the divine presence. And the word olam also comes from the word alim, the same letters ayin, lamed, mem. That means strong, powerful. In other words, the concealment is strong and powerful. The limitations of time and space are strong, concealing, and powerful. And therefore, they're going out of those limitations, concealment that are very strong. Um, takes a greater divine power to overcome them. Now, what is the source of all of the limitations of the world? Of course, God is the creator, but in the creative process is that the creation of all the worlds, and therefore the time and space, the concealment and the powerful concealment, comes from the Or Hakav, the light of what we call Kav, is a line of divinity. This is based on the Arizal's teachings. Now, before there was tzimtzum, contraction, all there was God, godliness, God, and godliness. There was no higher, lower, which is a source for time and space, right? Space means there's a higher space, a lower space. Time means there's, a time before and after. That comes from the Kav. Kav means, again, a line that came from the original Tzimtzum. Right? It's a metaphor, of course, the line. A line that light is now contracted. So a line has a top, has a middle, has a bottom. There's a distinction. Where are you? Right? Want to get the front. Thank you. Before the tzimtzum, the first tzimtzum, the first contraction, there's only light that is completely consumed by the core essence of God. And therefore the light, there's no beginning to it. There's no middle or end to it. Through the first contraction, on the God contracts upon himself, emerges this, what we call kav, which then becomes, again, a metaphor, a line of light that therefore has all of a sudden a beginning to it, a middle, and an end to it, which it becomes the source of time and space, the source of concealment. Before that, there was just the core essence of God, and any light that was completely nullified and a part of, like the rays of the sun within the sun. No, the rays of the sun within the sun are metaphorically speaking, at least, not in functionality and reality, because they do end up emerging. But as they are within the sun, there's no reality of a world. It's only when it emerges from the sun, a ray, right? That ray now has a beginning, a middle, 4 minutes later, and an end. 8 minutes later, then it reaches down to Earth. That would be, let's say, metaphorically, somewhat to the Kav, if you will. Of course, that's a contraction, right? It's a mere ray that comes out from the sun. I'm just trying to make that a little more concrete than the metaphor. So now all of a sudden, I mean, where the metaphor, of course, isn't, is that when we speak about the tzimtzum, the contraction, that now becomes a ray of light, it's now a thing. Before that, it was no thing. It was just part of its source. Now, of course, the sun itself is also a thing, so that's a breakdown in the metaphor. But God is no thing. And that which emerges is from him is also no thing. Through the contraction, all of a sudden, that no thing that is, so to speak, everything, now emerges into something that has a higher level, a lower level, becomes the source then for time and space and for being, which being means it's hiding on God because it now is a something. Hope that was clear. So according to this is where Mitzrayim, who is the Mitzrayim coming with the word Meitzar, Helam, on restriction and concealment, right? So Egypt becomes then the two things like the Kav. The Kav is a restriction and a thing that's hiding on the real thing. So that's what Egypt becomes. That's what this world becomes. Egypt being the ultimate in that limitation and concealment. Now, in the future, in the times of Mashiach, when we go out of all limitations of Egypt that Egypt represents, right? And that's the idea, going out of Egypt, going out of the limitations. Then when we go out of all limitations, then the revelation of God, of godliness will be, incomparable to what it is today. Both in the creation itself, we will see a new world order. New heavens, new earth, so to speak, right? We'll see the novelty in everything. And also when it comes to Torah, which Torah is the source of creation, as God looks into the Torah as the blueprints of creation. So Torah will also be Torah Chadash Amiti Teitze, a new Torah, not new laws. It's not a new Shabbos, but it'll be a new teachings that will be so profoundly all-encompassing, and we'll see the newness in everything. And the revelation of godliness will be all new. So as today, the revelation of godliness comes from the external aspect of Atik. External aspect of Atik, but in times of Mashiach will come from the internal aspect. The true pleasure that God has that will come from. What does that mean? So, in the times of the Holy Temple, where there was a divine presence of God, there were 10 miracles that everybody perceived. I'm sorry, just before that. So this is all then prefaced, though, on our going out of Egypt that will reveal this internal divine pleasure of God that will animate the world from the greatest level of godliness that will be without a contraction, without a concealment. But that's going to be brought about through our efforts, our divine service. So we had a divine service of God in the times of the Holy Temple that brought about the presence of God through 10 different miracles that happened in the Holy Temple. As we learn in Pirkei Avos, actually. And these miracles were palpable. They were real. You could see them. You could experience them. Even you didn't have to be a Torah scholar, a simple individual. That was brought up, and that created a reality that you served God in a very reasonable manner because it was very palpable that in the service of God that you experienced God in times of Holy Temple. When you didn't serve, then you experienced the opposite. So, it was seeing is believing. And even though they gave themselves over to Hashem, because our service should not be based on reason and perception. So there was some kind of Mesirus Nefesh giving themselves over, but it was very limited. In the time of exile, when godliness is prevalent, darkness is prevalent, not godliness, especially in the heels of Mashiach, where darkness actually becomes greater as we get closer to Mashiach. Interesting. So we have many challenges, and especially challenges when it comes to not be affected, not to be embarrassed by those who ridicule. And we live in a time that the ridicule of the Jew is greater than ever. Greater than ever. And the ridicule is coming from lowlifes. It makes it even more difficult. It's coming from, you know, from great people. So, but coming from lowlifes, she's exactly what's going on today. So it makes it harder to take. And yet we stand in that challenge of sacrifice beyond any measure. But how do we stand in that challenge? Um, that we're proud to look like a Jew, proud to walk like a Jew, proud to put up a mezuzah like a Jew, and not to fear what people are going to think. Proud to go, put on tefillin in a place, in a public place with another Jew. So this is before the coming of Mashiach that we have this very deep avodah, divine service, of self-sacrifice. In other words, in times of the Holy Temple, you sense the very real connection. It reflected itself in the world.
He's afraid he has to open the door. That I'm here now, so I'll go up to the door. So don't worry about it.
Isn't there?
Did you like the door?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So today, our response is not a logical response. Our response is coming for what's going on in the world from the fact that the core essence of the Jew is a Jew, and that's how it's responding, which is remarkable. And that's what needs to be. This is the Avodah for Golas in general, especially now as we come to the end of the exile. It has to come from the core essence of our soul, beyond time and space, beyond reason, beyond logic. And then that will affect then that we will reveal God that's beyond time and space. And will bring to the ultimate revelation of Mashiach, that we will see the novelty in creation, the novelty in everyday living, the novelty in the teachings of the Torah every day. Maybe Hashem's will that we will be speedily through our actions and our divine service, that we will go soon to receive and accept Mashiach, our righteous Redeemer, and will be fulfilled in actuality, just like the days when we went out of Egypt, that we will see the wonderment, Miyad Nikolim, immediately we will be revealed.